Already we have the return of Big Time? Did that need to happen? We'll find out together. Stay tuned. Hello friends, welcome back to the show. So glad to see you all once again. I don't know what this is, but I am glad to see you. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. I promise I won't do this anymore. This is the show where we go back and look at cartoons and comics and things that we grew up on from the 80s and 90s and talk about them today as adults. So if this sounds like something you might enjoy, stick around, hit the subscribe, hit the like, because we've got some great content on its way. Like today's episode, Betrayal from Batman Beyond, which originally aired on December 9th, 2000.
I've seen month-old fish that smell better than this.
Well, here we are. We've got Big Time back in the action, and we just saw him not that long ago, but I kind of sort of forgot about him. Wasn't really a memorable character, but I guess he deserved a second episode, so here we go. But before we get into all the details of that, we have a special guest that's going to be giving us the 60-second rundown of the episode. Take it away.
All right, Big Time is back and is now working for a mob boss named the Mayor, who uses him as a powerful henchman. But Big Time seems a bit unhappy because he feels excluded from the gang and he's only used for his muscles. Meanwhile, Terry feels guilty because Big Time was his friend and he got his monstrous appearance from a fight which Terry was involved in, kind of like Two-Face and Batman in BTAS. Bruce also feels concerned that this may be too personal for Terry. Then Big Time kidnaps Terry and tries to persuade him to join the Mayor's gang, but he refuses and runs away. But then is caught up again by Big Time, who agrees to get the Mayor arrested in exchange for getting help with a cure afterwards. But it turns out he only went along because he wanted the Mayor arrested and doesn't really care about the cure. And then they get into a fight and Bruce joins in and... damn it. I was so close. Alright, Bruce then joins in a fight and Terry and Big Time fights up on a bridge and it ends with Big Time falling off and is presumed dead. Damn it. Well, I tried.
Hell, sometimes the bomb blows up. Believe me, I know.
You don't have to remind me.
So here we are. We've got Big Time, which is certainly just a large brute of a guy. So it only seems natural that this episode is going to have a little bit more focus on the action and the fighting and the brute force.
Did you really believe Big Time would lay low after going to all that trouble to break out?
However, they did set up a story in Big Time's title episode, Big Time, about Terry and his history and trying to work out what that's going to look like and if Terry's going to go with them or not. And they kind of lose some of that in this episode. It's referenced, but they don't get to the emotion of it as much as they did in the previous episode.
Was my friend.
And notably for Big Time, we have a new voice actor. We've got Clancy Brown, your typical big brute force guy, and also Mr. Crab. That just seems odd to me. But we have him taking over from Stephen Baldwin for Big Time.
At least I got a sack of creds.
And his voice it fits this character really well. I get it from the previous one that we saw Big Time as just a regular human, young kid, and I don't think that quite fits Clancy's voice. So here we introduce him as, we bring in a new voice.
Just because I look like this now doesn't mean I lost any IQ points.
And speaking of voice actors, we have John Polito speaking for Major, which is just such a great voice for that character. But also, I really enjoy it when they take the actor and model the character after them. That is exactly what he looks like in real life, is exactly what that animated. He almost is a cartoon character.
Since when is that your decision?
He's one of those actors that always played this type of character in live action as well as animation, and what a great character actor, and just totally knowing his type and owning it. I always enjoy when he pops up in movies, and I think maybe my introduction to him was Rocketeer.
Oh, don't worry, folks. It's all part of the show.
I loved him in that movie, And I love that movie. And so to have him featured in this episode was very fun. He has since passed away, but it's nice that he lives on, one in his voice, but also the animated version of him is kind of a neat thing for this episode.
Then fix it, or you are finished.
Something else that I haven't really talked about much, but stood out in this episode is I talk a lot about Terry and Dana's relationship, and maybe I'm being a little hard on it. I know some of you mentioned that in the comments. Some of it just feels like forced teenage drama that they're trying to add into it, and some of it's just like, get over it already. But the other thing is that I noticed in this episode and in other episodes is that it seems like Terry spends a lot more time with Max. And maybe they would make a better couple.
You mean, do I agree with the old man?
But maybe they're just too good of friends to be a couple. I don't know. But in either case, it's like Terry's always getting blamed for not spending enough time with Dana, but yet he finds time to spend with Max. And I guess the argument could be made that, well, he can talk about being Batman and the Batman things that are going on with Max. But then I go, well, if Max knows, why can't Dana know? Why can't he tell Dana that he is Batman? And what they don't deal with in this is the idea of keeping a secret identity to protect those that he loves. They don't really talk about that in this. But here we have Max, who he apparently doesn't care enough about her well-being. He has her out on missions and work right alongside him.
Let go of him!
You know, so it just seems like he could take some of the time he spends with Max and spend it with Dana, and his relationship would probably be in a better place. But who am I to say?
I tried to stop him. Really, I did.
Now, Bruce had the same thought that I did when Terry gets captured and and Max had Terry's backpack and she's telling Bruce what's going on. And then Bruce calls her right back and goes,
Don't even think of putting it on.
that would have been great. I would have loved to have seen Max put on the bat suit and go in and save Terry, make herself out to be Batman. I thought that would have been a great moment, and I don't know why they avoided it. It's like they acknowledged that they could have done that, or that's what the episode could have been, but they didn't. And I don't know. It was kind of strange.
I'll be right over.
So as this episode goes on and we see Big Time trying to make it into the mob and him not being respected but just being treated like brute force, and him wanting to have Terry be a partner with him because they're old friends and old buddies and wants him to be in on the action, and Terry doesn't want to go down that same path. If all this sounds like a repeat, it is. That's the plot of Big Time.
Good to see you, Tiny.
It just sort of feels like this episode is trying to redo what they did in the original episode, Big Time, and I don't think it's as executed as well. And so I don't know why this needed to be a story that was repeated. I don't know why they needed to bring the character Big Time back into the mix. And just in general, it just felt like recycled material.
We've been through this before.
You know, and of course it ends in a big showdown, and we have, Big Time can't be trusted, and Batman and him have to go at it again.
I'll be here, I swear.
But we do touch on the element that again, tying into Bruce's past, that he knows exactly what it's like to have to go against a friend, to have to fight a friend. And certainly we saw this with Harvey Dent and other characters like that. And so that, again, it was a nice bonding moment at the end, but just didn't have enough building up to it.
I know how hard it is to go against a friend.
So when it comes time to rank this episode, meh. I mean, it was good and it was entertaining. I like some of these stories with the mob, and I like some of the stories with Terry's past, and the elements that's tied into that. But like I've said, it just felt like this had already been done once before. And so for those reasons, it falls at the number 30 spot of my favorite episodes so far. It falls just below Final Cut. Final Cut is, again, another one of those kind of one-off stories, but it dealt with an element that I didn't feel like was exploited a lot, which was the League of Assassins and what happens if they don't succeed and them getting their mark and all those sorts of things. Just felt that was an original story, whereas this one I didn't feel like it was. But I do have this one beating out Earth Movers, because Earth Movers was very kind of vanilla and kind of basic and plain, but it felt like a lot of backstory and a lot of exposition that this one didn't have because it had the luxury of the previous episode. So I think that's one advantage. It does make me think too that whereas Earth Movers, they could have did an original story with that and then had the Earth Movers be the continuation, so they didn't have all the backstory. Or like in this case, that I feel like this episode, Betrayal, could have been just the second part or a part 2 of Big Time if they would have had enough intricacies blended into there. Just my opinion. I don't know. Take it for what it's worth.
For what? I like the way I look.
So my question is to you, do you think that they needed to have a second episode with Big Time, or were you kind of satisfied, like me, with the first appearance of Big Time in his titled episode? Let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed this episode, please, 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 I'm begging you, no, I'm not begging you, but I am suggesting that if you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy what I'm doing here on the channel, please take this episode and share it with a friend. Send it to them in an email, post it in your Instagram, or do a TikTok about it. Whatever you want to help get the word out is to share it any way that you have the ability to share it. And I always appreciate that quite tremendously. And of course, you can also like and subscribe. That also does well for the analytics. But stick around because we have a few more episodes of Batman Beyond Season 3 or Batman Beyond the series in general. So you don't want to miss any of those. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Andy Knode. I'll see you soon.